All right, here we are back at it. So we've already talked a little bit about how we factor. We do our first term times our last term to get us going. So I left up the previous example. I'm going to hide this little box here. Left up the previous example so that you guys could see how it kind of looks and what we're focusing on. And so then I'm going to come over here and do another problem. We've got 3 that we're going to do here real quick. They don't take very long. And we're going to do some practice with those. So, all right, I'm going to bye. Close this down and let's take a look. So we do our first term times our last term. So I'm going to kind of make a little rooftop here. And so I'm going to do t squared times 14. So that's just going to be 14t squared. And then we want to find the middle term. It's going to add to make negative 9t. So what we need to come up with are 2 numbers that are going to multiply to make 14. So what could multiply to make 14? Well, 7 and 2. And I'm going to put a t after this. 7 and 2 or 14 and 1 are really the only ways to get a 14. And so here, we have to make this a negative 9. So if they're both negative, a negative times a negative makes our positive 14, and negative 7 plus negative 2 makes our negative 9t. And so those are the numbers we're looking for. That's the hardest part, is finding our new numbers. What's the piece that's missing? Then our first term goes in the first square of the box. The last term goes in the last square of the box. And now we factor outward. So what makes a t squared? Well, that would have to be a t times a t. What makes our minus 7t? Well, I'd need a t, which I already have from that row, and then I'd need my minus 7. What makes my negative 2t? Well, I already have the t, so I need the negative 2. And then just to verify, to double check, does negative 7 times negative 2 make the negative 14? Yes. So our answers would be, from the box, from the top of the box, I have t minus 7. And from the side of the box, I have t minus 2. And that's really all there is to it. So let's do a couple more real quick ones. We'll get some numbers that are a little bit bigger, a little harder to work with, just to kind of get some more practice with those. So let's try another one, factoring our polynomials. Some more of these. And then you guys can tell me, is it no problem, maybe, bad? Just kind of think to yourselves. Obviously, you can't tell me the feedback, but if you need to message me, so that we can go over problems more in detail if you need it. All right, so we want to do first term times the last term. So y squared times negative 10 would be negative 10 y squared. And then our middle term is our negative 3y. And our goal here, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to break up this middle term. We're trying to figure out what created that. That's why we're coming up with these random numbers. So we need to figure out what multiplies to make 10. Well, we've got 10 and 1 or 5 and 2. And I'm going to say my chances are that it's probably a 5 and a 2, but I need to make this a negative. So the bigger number must be negative because the answer is a negative number. So negative 5 times 2, just to double check, negative 5 times 2 does make negative 10, and negative 5 plus 2 does make the negative 3. So we're just verifying that those are, in fact, our numbers. That's how we get the top and bottom of the diamond. So what numbers did we have to use? So that negative 5y and the positive 2y go in the 2 corners. And then our first term, our y squared, and our last term goes in the last box. I'm going to erase this here because I need the space. And then we factor it out. So our y squared, we're going to start with just these easy ones where the first one is just y times y. That's all we're going to do today. Tomorrow we'll pick up and do some extras. So what makes the negative 5? Well, I'd need a negative 5. And what makes the 2? Well, I'd need a positive 2. And just to double check then, do these multiply to make negative 10? Sure enough, they do. Check. And so then that's our answers. So we have, and you can do this in either order. So I could do the y plus 2 first. It doesn't matter. And then the y minus 5 second. The signs matter, so it has to be a positive 2 and a negative 5. I can't switch it around and say a negative 2 and a positive 5, because then it no longer gives me a negative 3 for my middle term. So you got to be careful about your signs, but the actual order doesn't really matter that much. All right, last one. first term times the last term. So this one, bigger numbers. I got 108 negative 108 x squared, and it has to add to make negative 3x. Now, obviously, this one I went like way crazy here with how big the numbers are, but it's possible. We can still factor this. 108. Whew, lots of things go into 108. We could do 108 times 1. We could do 108 and divided by 4, so 4 times 27. We could sit here and list factors all day. We could do 108 divided by 6 is 18. But our goal here is that the numbers have to be only 3 spaces apart from each other. So what I did ahead of time is I went through and I looked. I'm like, okay, well, it's not divisible. It doesn't divide by 8. So just kind of sitting there and listing out my factors, and I found that 108 does in fact divide by 9. And 9 times 12 makes 108. And what's special about those two numbers, and the reason they're going to work, is that 9 and 12 are 3 digits apart from each other. And that's where this comes in, the minus 3. Since it's a negative 3, I know the bigger number needs to be negative. And now I can see 9 times negative 12 does make 108. 9 plus negative 12, or 9 minus 12, makes negative 3. And so that's how we get our numbers. So sometimes it takes a little extra to come up with the terms that we're looking for. First term goes in the first box, last term goes in the last box, and we factor it from there. Let's do purple. So x squared is just x times x. I need a positive 9 for the right side. I need a minus 12 for the bottom. And double check, 9 times negative 12, sure enough, gives me 108, negative 108. So then my answers are x minus 12 and x plus 9. And there it is. That's how we factor. So hopefully, I mean, today, just trying to kind of introduce these problems to you. Hopefully it's not too terrible, and that you are set to work through some of those work problems. The examples on the Delta Math are going to be a little trickier, because they don't go through the actual diamond and the box. They sort of show you the diamond, but they don't really do the box with you. So make sure you check these out, or come back to these videos if you're getting stuck, or feel free to message me if you are still unsure. And have a good day.